Hey, what's up? It's Jackal. Thank you for joining me on the Eli frequency today. You could have been anywhere on Earth in this moment. So I'm glad you chose to spend this time with me. So as not to waste it, what we talking about? We are talking about what it means to be Black in America. And before we get into that, let's hear what Dr. Umar Johnson has to say about that.
DOSFBA, respectfully, I'm going to go with both groups because they represent basically the same thing, but there are differences, right? So ADOS,
which is a descendant of slave.
No, they're first. FBA comes later. Okay, but they both exist. FBA is more popular, right?
Okay.
ADOSFBA. Contradictory in this way, you still identify with the white man. You are a Black American? Since when? So you'll call yourself an American, but you'll never call yourself an African. Think about that now. After all I've been through in this country, I'm still going to wave their flag. After all I've been through in this country, I'm still going to use their colors. After everything I've been through in this country, I'm still going to identify with the plantation and call myself an American.
So let's take that right there. So does every other group who considers themselves American identify with the most negative things about America? So why do Black people have to carry that burden? Why do we have to consider identifying as an American as slavery, as all the negative things that happen with Black people? How come we can't identify as American, as a Black American, indistinguishably from African American? How come that identification can't align itself with overcoming all the struggles that have come with being Black in America? I mean, should we pretend that there has not been a Black president? Now think about this. With all that you contribute to the struggles of being born and raised a Black person in America, you have all these other racial and ethnic groups, right? And considering what Black folks have been through in America, other than white folks, and I'm saying that as a conglomerate, big group of people. We can go down into the ethnic breakup, but let's just say as white folks as a group, inclusive of all these ethnicities, right? Now you have Asians, you have Latinos, you have all these other groups of people, right? As a Black person, we have come up from being the most oppressed people to ever be in America, and we have ascended to reach the highest point that an American can reach to become president. We have been the only group collectively, other than white, right? We have been the only group to achieve that height of success, of power in America. Why should we not, as a Black Americans, be proud of that, be happy, be celebratory of that fact? I mean, we can debate whether, there has been significant change because there was a Black man in all. We can debate that. But what we can't debate is that a Black person has risen through the ranks and become the highest power of authority that you can obtain in the United States. Twice. We give no credence to that. I mean, we as Black folks have a culture of our own and an identity of our own in America as Americans. Most Black folks cannot relate to the struggles that Africans are going through in the country and the continent of Africa. Most Black folks cannot relate to their struggles. And you're trying to relegate Black folks in America to the plantations and slavery as if that's all we've ever been through, as if that's all we've ever accomplished. That's akin to relegating Africans to poverty, thinking Africans are what we see on TV, right? But they're much larger than that. But that's all we were shown, right? So if you want us to believe that if we want or prefer to call ourselves Black Americans because of all the struggles we've overcome and all the accomplishments we've made here in America, and you want to relegate that to just slavery and plantations, America is Black culture. Don't get it twisted. Rock and roll, yeah, that came from Black Americans. You know, Chuck Berry, you know, Little Richard. Do you understand? Hip hop, the number one music genre for the last 30 years? Yeah, that's us. That's Black culture. Pop? Where did that come from? Think about that. Where did that come from? Talking about New Edition, talking about BBD, you talking about Boys to Men. You can even take it back. You're talking about Al Green. You're talking about Lionel Richie. You're talking about the Pointer Sisters. You're talking about the Gap Band. You're talking about the SOS. Come on, man. What? What are you talking about? Music in America is Black culture. Now, I'm not saying it's only Black culture because I don't want this to get misconstrued as if I'm talking about like Black folks invented everything. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that Black folks had a part in creating everything that's American, as have some people in the collective white race have contributed. But my point is, we were foundational in creating it. All these Fortune 500 businesses that are currently residing in America, yeah, a lot of that started because of slavery and what came from that. So why wouldn't us as Black folk, why wouldn't we want to celebrate being a part of that? Something to celebrate. I can't stake that claim for anything in Africa that has happened over the last 100, 200, 300 years. I don't know. What I do know is that my ancestors contributed to the civil rights, the Black Panther Party for self-protection, fighting in all of the wars. And what that fight was, it was for the United States of America. I've never fought for Africa. I was in the military. I fought for the United States. I don't know any of my ancestors that ever fought in a war for Africa. They've all fought for the United States. So why wouldn't I identify with the place that, yes, some of my ancestors were kidnapped and brought to the land, yes. But then what happened? Because that happened, I can definitely now say, and it's factual, you can look it up, that Black folks as an ethnic group are the largest and longest bloodline in the Americas, with the exception of one group, and that is Native American. However, there is Black ancestry that's native to America too. But let's not even talk about that. Let's not even add that in right now. So let's say they're the longest group. But as far as the longest and the largest, that would be Black folks. Most of our ancestry, the Black folks here in America, most of our ancestry can be traced through that slave trade, right? So our immigration, if you want to call it that, right, started then, millions of us. And our ancestry started from that point forward in America. We are the largest group that can say that. Excuse me. Now, white folks as a group can't even say that. And then you break it down even further. You can distinguishably tell when the Germans came over, when the Italians came over, when the English came over, when the Irish came over, when the Japanese the Japanese came over and how they were treated, when the Chinese came over and how they were treated. You can distinguish when there was large migrations from each one of these ethnic groups. And it was way after slavery started. Think about that. So why wouldn't we be proud to identify as Black Americans, since this country is partly what it is because of us? Dr. Umar is acting like Africa is what it is because of Africans. Like a lot of people because of Black Africans, let me say that, or Africans of color. I mean, Africans are also white. There are white Africans, and we know this. Do you think the Africans of color identify with the Africans that are not of color? Elon Musk is a great example. He's an African. So when you say you're an African, Dr. Umar, are you aligning yourself with Elon Musk? Because you're not being distinctive, right? You're not claiming a certain tribe in Africa. You're saying African, which is what Elon Musk is. South African? Do you see what I'm saying? So to align myself and say I'm African American would be essentially the same thing as saying I'm an American, because you're saying we're aligning ourselves with the slave trade and plantations if we call ourselves American. But are you aligning yourself with apartheid? Since you want to be labeled as an African American, so you're aligning yourself with plantation slavery and also apartheid. And also Africans who are not of color and who do not like Africans of color. I can't say you're aligning yourself with them if you call yourself an African, right? But you should be more specific. You can't say you're just an African, because Africans don't even say they're Africans. They're aligning themselves with a specific tribe in Africa. And if you don't know what tribe you come to or you belong to, why are you saying you're an African? Because if you want to get down to it, you have to go back to the tribe. You can't just say African. So let's just hear more of what he got to say.
So I don't have an issue with the concept. I take issue with the strategies. And
What about if someone is saying that, all right, we look at anyone that is putting in our place
yourself off from your root, and you identifying with a man who's trying to get rid of you? That's the weakness of the movement, Loon.
Who is that they're identifying with?
Say that again.
Who is that they are identifying with this trying to?
Americans.
Okay.
Both of them call themselves Americans, both groups. So they identify with the plantation.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, yes.
But they cut themselves off from the ancestors. You see that? To me,
another thing that he's failing to identify is that life as humans started as Africans. So everyone is essentially an African. Everyone can call themselves Africans because humanity started in Africa. So the logic doesn't even make sense, because he acts as if only Black folks can call themselves African if we're taking it back to the ancestry. Everyone's ancestor is African. We're talking about nationality, the nation that you're aligning yourself with, because that's the nation of your culture. But let him continue.
that is the greatest shortcoming of that movement. Ain't nobody taking me from my African roots. I don't give a what game y'all want to play, but you ain't doing that. There's spiritual we knocking on the door of FDMG being ready. There needs to be a progressive American African movement that looks out for the best interests of the American African people, that does not demonize our brothers and sisters abroad, and that looks to build relationships with them as far as that can be done.
Again, there needs to be a movement that looks out for our the people that you're trying to talk about, African American, like a lot of those Africans came way after slavery to America. So that's why they're African American, right? And a lot of those people came over here for the opportunities, college, to have a better life, a lot of different reasons. So they aren't coming over here and having the struggle that you're talking about. Africans that are coming over here are coming over here for the opportunities. That's why there's a distinction. When I say black, I'm really not talking about Africans that came from Africa, because those are African Americans, essentially African Americans. And they do very well over here. They score really well on college tests. They are amongst the highest scorers. Come over here and start and run successful businesses. I am proud of my African American brothers and sisters who've come here and they have the opportunity to excel. However, they have the opportunities and those opportunities because of the black people in America who fought and created opportunity for others who look like us to come here and have that success. Doesn't mean we're better, worse, indifferent. It just means the facts are, because of civil rights, because of a lot of the movements that we have been a part of and that we fought for, our brothers and sisters in Africa have that opportunity to come here and be successful. We've had different fights and different struggles. That's all we're saying. We have not been privy to the struggles that they've had in Africa. So I could not in good faith claim that I'm an African if I haven't had the struggles that they've had. I haven't fought the wars that they fought. I don't even speak the language that they speak. And different tribes have even further dialect. I could never claim that. But I can claim American because historically I know what my ancestors have been involved in and fought for. I understand it. And I'm not saying it makes me better or worse. It's just different. I know the culture that was created by black folks here in America. Different African tribes have different cultures that I am unfamiliar with. What I am familiar with is what black folks in America have attributed and created and manifested. Let's hear more.
So my movement to counteract the negativity of these movements we're discussing is going to be the DAFA movement. DAFA, Descendants of African Freedmen in America. Remember, Loon, after freedom came, we were known as what? Freedmen. That was a legal classification. We were the freedmen. My 3 times great-grandfather George fought in the Civil War. My 4 times great-grandfather Steve fought in the Civil War. My cousins Lewis and Charles, the sons of Frederick Douglass, fought in the Civil War. I'm a descendant of freedmen who fought to keep this country from being divided. And we have rights as freedmen, so we're fighting as descendants of African, not no American.
That's a huge contradiction. They fought to be freed men. No. They fought to be freed American men. Those wars were American wars. Like the Civil War was America fighting against itself to be called free Americans. It's the whole point of the war. Any war fought was a fight for America. They weren't fighting for Africa. They was fighting to be free Americans. And so how can you take that and try to apply that to African? It's a contradiction. You're naming all your people who fought in American wars to be free Americans, whether they volunteered or they were forced into war. They were going to war for America, not against America. I don't understand. It's a huge contradiction. Proceed.
You ain't never putting that in no title, no organization of mine. Descendants of African Freedmen in America. Yo, yo, yo.
So I got this content from my boy from Urban Politicians. He really has some good content. I like a lot of the subjects he talk about. It sparks something in me to talk about, to have conversations about those same subjects. I'm not trying to copy him, but I respect a lot of his topics, and they're similar topics that I want to talk about or I've wanted to talk about. So I give him a big shout out, Urban Politicians. Make sure you check that out. But okay, so on some of this, I talk about Black. And I think when I talk about Black, some of you get confused because Black, you know it as a race. So I submit that Black is way more than a race. I submit that Black, being Black, a Black American, is with regard to an ethnic. Now, you say, what makes up an ethnic group? So let's distinguish. Let's make the distinction. So even though Black often is referred to as race, African American is frequently viewed as a specific ethnicity, right? However, many prefer Black American to emphasize culture, including music, cuisine, and language. And it means you were birthed an American. And you've reached that point of contention through the unique crucible of the enslaved experience rather than being a direct import from any current African nation. So like the historical resistance to deportation. In the early 19th century, many Black leaders moved away from the term African as a form of protest, such as the American Colonization Society, which was founded in 1816, attempted to forcibly return Black people to Liberia. Many instead adopted labels that asserted their rights to American citizenship and their role in building the country, because we had a huge role, a significant role in building the country. The legacy of, as I said before, the Black Power movement, the term Black was pridefully reclaimed in the 1960s during the Black Power movement, when leaders like Stokely Carmichael argued that Black was a political and self-determined identity that rejected the passive connotations of Negro or the perceived othering of hyphenated identities. So for many, Black American feels more rooted in the spirit of self-determination. So another distinction from the recent immigrant groups is immigration from Africa and the Caribbeans increased post-1960s. The term African America became an umbrella for anyone of African descent in the U.S. So you might use Black American to specifically denote a lineage tied to the American South and the transatlantic slave trade, distinguishing your specific history from that of a second-generation African immigrant or people who've immigrated from Haiti or Jamaica, because they would be considered what? Do you understand what I'm saying? Many sociologists and historians and Genealogists argue that Black Americans, specifically those descended from enslaved people in the United States, constitute a distinct ethnic group. So it's not me just saying it. Many sociologists and genealogists argue that Black would be considered an ethnic group and not just a racial category. Because race is often an external label based on physical traits. Ethnicity is defined by shared culture, history, language, and lineage. So here's how Black American identity fits that definition. A distinct ethnogenesis, right? So ethnogenesis is the process by which a new distinct ethnic group is formed. For Black Americans, this occurred through the blending of various West Central African cultures. Like I said, you have to know what African culture you're coming through. You can't just say you're an African. I mean, Yoruba, Igbo, Mindi, Fan, etc. So because the specific tribal identities were stripped away in the transatlantic slave trade, a new unified culture was formed that exists nowhere else in the world. So this makes Black American an ethnicity in the same way that Latino or Han Chinese are ethnicities. It describes a specific historical origin story. Now, number 2, the unique linguistic and cultural markers. Ethnicity is often tied to shared cultural outputs. Black Americans have developed a unique system that serves as ethnic identifiers. For instance, if you've heard the term AAVE, it's African American Vernacular English, right? So a distinct linguistic system with its own grammatical rules and syntax. Cuisine, soul food, that's a specific ethnic culinary tradition rooted in the American South. Black folks created that. That doesn't come from anywhere outside of America and Black folks in America. Now, there may be pieces from other places, but together collectively as soul food, that is a Black American tradition and culture coming from the South specifically. Our faith traditions, the Black church, develop unique styles of music and spiritual gospel and social roles that differ significantly from African or European Christian traditions. When you talk about somebody catching the Holy Ghost and how people act in church and the music and the distinction between going to a Black church and then going to a Christian church, a traditional Christian church. You know the difference. Number 3 is the shared historical trauma and triumph. So ethnic groups are often bound by a collective memory, right? The specific trajectory of the Middle Passage, chattel slavery in the American South, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, and the Great Migration created a shared heritage that is unique to its group. Black Americans all share that unique history. And they understand that. They still feel the pain of that. If you're a person from Africa coming to the United States now, you won't feel the same about that because your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather didn't go through those exact things as far as its American history. You have went through some things in your ancestry, being from Africa, that I cannot relate to. So that's the distinction for so in recent years, movements like the ADOS, the American Descendants of Slavery, or those identifying as freedmen have gained traction precisely to argue this point. They argue that Black is a broad racial bucket. African American has become a broad multicultural bucket, like white. But Black American, in the ancestral sense, is a specific ethnic group with a unique claim to the American legacy and specific political interests. So, I mean, that's basically the ethnogenesis of Black Americans, right? In sociology, ethnogenesis is the birth of a new ethnic group. For Black Americans, it's often described as the creolization of the American South. So there's the crucible effect, which historians argue that because enslaved people were intentionally mixed with others who spoke different languages, they had to create a bridge culture. This results in a group that is biologically and culturally distinct. DNA studies often show that the average Black American has a specific genetic profile, roughly 75 to 80% West African, 20% European, and 1 to 2% Native American. That reflects the specific, often painful history of the United States. This genetic signature is an ethnic marker. So there's been a push for census reform. It's a growing movement to change how the U.S. Census collects data. Currently, Black or African American is one giant box. Proponents of the Black American as ethnicity, which is what I am, argue this is insufficient for two reasons. Data accuracy. Groups 10th generation descendant of an enslaved person in Georgia with the first generation immigrant from Ethiopia. This masks the specific socioeconomic needs and historical claims of the foundational group. Self-identification. Many are now advocating for a specific checkbox, such as American freedom or American descendant of slavery, to signify that their ethnicity is a domestic product of the United States. I would just say Black American as an ethnic group, not as a race, as an ethnic group. Because again, race is make-believe. It's made up. Ethnicity and ethnic groups are not. It's a culture, which I've just previously explained to you. So key thinkers and movements. If you are looking for a modern intellectual justification, these sources are foundational. The ADOS movement, it was founded by Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. So the National Assembly of American Freedmen, the NAAF. So that's a term, freedman, to emphasize a specific legal status and lineage, arguing that African American is too broad and erases their specific American heritage. Albert Murray, a mid-20th century intellectual who famously argued in the Omni Americans that Black culture is the most American of all cultures, as it was created entirely within the American context. And that's absolutely true. So, as Dr. Umar tries to describe linking American or African to Black folks in America, I have an issue with that. You can't make me do something that I foundationally disagree with you about. I mean, I wish I did have the history of ancestry going all the way back to its creation in Africa. But unfortunately, I don't have that. And I think most Black folks in America don't have that. But what we do have is our ancestry that goes back to America. And why you keep calling America as if it's a white man's thing. Like these white men that you're talking about that Black men want to emulate and be like, they aren't even Americans, most of them. Our lineage goes back further in America than theirs do. So it doesn't even make sense why you're saying that. You're saying Black people who want to associate themselves as Americans are trying to emulate people who we've been here before. My ancestors have been here longer than most people under the umbrella of being white. My ancestry has been here longer than theirs have, most of them. So why would I consider myself identifying with them when I have more stake to a claim in America than they do? By generations. It doesn't make any sense. You're misguided in your whole thought process. And I just wanted to come and clear some of that up because I think it's unfortunate. And I think Black folks in America who have ancestry in America from the slave trade, I think they have a definite claim on calling themselves Black Americans. I think it means more for me when someone says that. I know exactly what they're saying. I know exactly what they mean. And someone saying they're African American, I understand that too. But I don't understand their struggles as they don't understand mine. I can know about it. I can be aware of it, but I can't understand it. Jim Crow, I can relate to family members that still talk about Jim Crow. Reconstruction, slavery, I can understand, I can relate, because that's what my family has gone through. Those stories have been told down from family member to family member until I understand. I understand how far I've come, how far my legacy has come. And I understand what it means for me to be able to do what I'm able to do today in the context of freedom and those who have fought for that freedom in the United States for Black folks. So I just had to get that out. I had to get through that today because it's really interesting to me how that works out. So in a world that evolves in all ways, let your foundation be eternal love always. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next frequency. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and that notification bell. Eli, frequently. You looking good, man. How you doing?
I'm fine.
That's good. My name's CDN. What's your name?
My name's Hadilla.
That's a beautiful name, but I just call you Hot.
I guess you can.
So what would it take for a man like me to get with a woman as fine as you?
You really want to know what it takes to get with a girl like me?
For sure. Your gravity, bringing them strings. Yeah, let's add some emotion to this scene.